Finnian Zeller was having the worst morning of his year, and that was saying something for a man who ran a billion-dollar empire and had survived 2 boardroom coups and 1 scandal involving a hostile takeover. His phone buzzed again. Voicemail. He pressed the screen with a controlled breath. His driver, Tony, had canceled last-minute sick kid, couldn't make it to the Upper East Side in time. Finnian stood outside the exclusive glass entrance of his high-rise building, glaring at the sleek black pavement like it had personally betrayed him. His private car was parked in another garage. His assistant was out sick. His backup driver was in Milan, and not a single cab or Uber was in sight. He hated being late. Damn it! "Are you okay?" a voice asked, soft but clear. He turned. A dusty blue Toyota Corolla idled by the curb window rolled down. The woman behind the wheel looked like she didn't belong in this part of Manhattan and definitely didn't belong speaking to him like that. Wild curls tied up messily, oversized sweatshirt, no makeup, and eyes that were far too direct for someone who had no idea who he was. She blinked. "You look like you're about to punch the sidewalk." "I might," he muttered. She gave a half laugh. "You stranded?" He lifted a brow. "What gave it away?" She tilted her head. "You want a ride?" He stared. "You're offering me a ride?" "Yes, I mean you look decent. And I figure if you were going to murder me, you wouldn't be wearing those shoes." Her eyes flicked down to his handmade leather Oxfords. He let out an incredulous breath. "You're kidding." "I'm not. Traffic's awful and I'm heading toward Midtown anyway." She reached over and popped the passenger door open. "You can say no, but I think you're out of options." He hesitated. He didn't take rides from strangers. He didn't even talk to strangers. But something about her tone casual, unbothered, like she wasn't dazzled by the Manhattan skyline or the suit he wore made him move. He slid into the seat. "Seatbelt," she said, shifting into drive. He clicked it shut. "Do you always pick up strangers in front of luxury condos?" "No," she said. "But you looked like you were going to combust." He looked at her again. She couldn't be older than 28. She had paint smudged on the sleeve of her sweatshirt and a camera tossed in the back seat. The car smelled like vanilla and coffee. She was completely unfiltered. "I'm Finnian," he said. She glanced at him. "Tessa." "Tessa what?" She gave him a look. "Why, you gonna Google me?" "No," he said smoothly. "I'm going to thank you properly later." That made her laugh. "Tessa Monroe," he nodded. "Where do you work?" "Freelance photographer," she said, swerving around a delivery van like she'd done it 100 times. "Mostly events, some street stuff, whatever pays." "And you're heading to Midtown, gallery drop-off," she said. "You, board meeting," she whistled. "That sounds more stressful than mine." "It is." She glanced at him again, really looked this time. "You own the building you were standing in front of?" "No." "Live there?" "No." She raised an eyebrow. "I run the company that owns the building," he said finally. Her mouth dropped open a little, then she laughed. "You serious?" "Yes. I just gave a ride to a CEO." He looked at her. "You gave a ride to the CEO of Zeller Holdings." She blinked. "That's real." He nodded. "Holy crap," she said, eyes wide now. "You're like..." Rich." He gave a half smile. "I manage a few billion in assets." She let out a stunned breath, then laughed again, shaking her head. "And I made you ride shotgun in a Corolla with a broken/C. Amazing," he chuckled. "It's strangely refreshing." They fell into an easy silence for a few blocks. He kept stealing glances at her. She was unlike anyone in his world, messy, real, blunt, not trying to impress him. She didn't care about his money or his watch or the fact that most women in his life would sell a kidney to get a meeting with him. She pulled up near Fifth Avenue. "This good?" she asked. He hesitated. "You have a card?" She shook her head. "Nope. I'm not that fancy." He reached into his suit pocket, pulled out a slim black card and offered it to her. "That's my assistant's number. Tell her what you want: camera equipment, gallery space, whatever. Consider it a thank you." She blinked. "You're serious?" "I don't joke." She took it slowly. "This is really nice of you. I don't forget people who help me when they didn't have to." Tessa tucked the card in her glove box like it was a golden ticket. "Thanks, Finnian." He opened the door, then paused. "You free for dinner tonight?" Her eyes widened. "Dinner?" You picked me up in the middle of Manhattan. Least I can do is buy you something fancier than street coffee," she hesitated. "I have a delivery later, but sure, okay, 7, I'll send a car, not the Corolla," she teased. He smiled. "Definitely not the Corolla." He shut the door. As she pulled away, he realized his mood had shifted. The stress, the board meeting, the chaos, it all felt lighter, all because some girl in a beat-up car had asked if he needed a ride. And for the first time in a long time, Finnian Zeller was looking forward to dinner. The car that pulled up in front of Tessa's walk-up that evening was not a regular black car service vehicle. It was a sleek obsidian Maybach with a man in a dark suit standing beside it, holding open the rear passenger door like she was royalty. Tessa froze on her front stoop, one hand still gripping the railing, her breath catching. "Miss Monroe?" the man asked. She nodded mutely. "Mr. Zeller is expecting you." She tried to act casual, but she'd just come from a last-minute clothing scramble that ended at a boutique where she'd begged the owner for a loaner dress. It was a clean, simple navy piece with a square neckline and subtle stitching at the waist, nothing flashy, but the best she could do in under an hour. The moment she slid into the car, the scent of leather and something faintly citrus hit her. There was a chilled bottle of water in a silver holder by her seat. She didn't touch it. She was still trying to process the fact that she was being chauffeured through Manhattan by a man whose shoes probably cost more than her rent. The car pulled into a private driveway behind a restaurant with no sign. A host in a tailored vest ushered her through a side entrance and up a polished staircase. When the room opened before her, she stopped. A table for two sat on a rooftop terrace, lit by soft amber lights strung above. The skyline glittered around them. Finnian stood near the edge, his jacket off, sleeves rolled up. He turned when he heard her. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her like she'd walked out of another world. "You clean up well," she said, trying not to fidget. "You look." His voice shifted slightly, softer. "Unexpected. I'll take it," she said, walking toward him. "You like rooftops, I like quiet." He gestured to the table. "This one's closed to the public. I use it when I need to think." "Do you think with wine?" He smiled and pulled out her chair. "Sometimes." She sat, watching as he poured them each a glass from a deep green bottle already breathing in a crystal decanter. "Wine before menus. Bold move," she said, raising a brow. "I already ordered." She blinked. "What if I'm allergic to? You're not." She stared at him. "How do you know that?" "I had someone check." "You what?" He leaned back in his chair. "I didn't want to kill you over dinner." "So romantic," she muttered. "I'm efficient. You had someone look into me. Only enough to make sure I wasn't inviting a serial killer to dinner." She narrowed her eyes. "You think serial killers drive Corollas? Some of them probably do." She fought a laugh and lost. The waiter appeared with 2 plates seared scallops on a bed of risotto, garnished with something delicately green. Tessa blinked at it. "This is not what I pictured when you said dinner." "What did you picture?" "Pizza." "Maybe Thai takeout. I'm trying to make an impression." "You already did that when you handed me a card with a direct line to your assistant." He sipped his wine. "Did you use it?" "I thought about it, but I figured I'd ask the source first." "What do you want?" She paused. "A space. To show some of my work, not forever, just a chance." He nodded slowly, setting down his glass. "Send me samples. If it's good, I'll make it happen. You don't even know if I can shoot. You framed me in your mirror while driving through traffic like it was nothing." "That takes instinct." She stared at him. "You notice that?" "I notice everything." That shut her up. For a moment the city hummed around them and the clink of silverware and glass felt louder than it should have. "You don't date much, do you?" she asked. "Not really. Too busy running the world, too busy avoiding people who only want access to it." She nodded. "Fair." He studied her. "What about you?" "I've dated. But it's hard to find someone who's okay with irregular hours and income that fluctuates like a slot machine." "You live alone?" "Yeah. No family in the city. My mom's upstate. Dad passed a few years ago." There was a pause. He didn't fill it with polite condolences. He just said, "Must have been hard." It was. Another plate arrived, dessert this time, something with dark chocolate and sea salt. "I didn't think you'd say yes tonight," he said after a beat. "Why?" "Most people hesitate when they realize what I do." "I didn't say yes because of what you do," she said, holding his gaze. "I said yes because you looked like a man who needed someone to tell him the world wasn't about to end." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "And now I'm trying to figure out if you're just really good at pretending you're not lonely." The corner of his mouth twitched. "That's a dangerous question. I'm not afraid of danger. I'm starting to believe that." They sat in silence for a long moment, the kind that didn't feel empty. The city pulsed below them, but up here, it was just the two of them, the tension between them slowly shifting from curiosity to something deeper. Finally, he stood and offered his hand. "I want to show you something." She took it, letting him lead her to the edge of the terrace. Below, the city lights stretched endlessly, windows glowing like stars. But he didn't look at the view, he looked at her. "I make a lot of decisions every day," he said, voice low, "and almost all of them are calculated." She turned toward him, her hand still in his. "But not this," he said. Tessa's breath caught in her throat. "I don't know what this is yet," he continued, "but it doesn't feel like something I want to ignore." She didn't pull away. "I don't need anything from you," she said softly. "Not your money. Not your name. I know. I just want to be seen. You are." And then, as the wind danced between them and the city roared quietly below, he leaned in, not because it was expected, but because it felt inevitable. The next morning, Tessa woke to a knock at her apartment door, a firm knock, not the impatient kind of her neighbor or the tentative one of the mailman. She pulled on a sweater and padded barefoot to open it. A man in a charcoal suit stood in the hallway, holding a long black box. "Miss Monroe," she nodded, wary. "This is from Mr. Zeller." Before she could protest, he passed her the box and disappeared down the stairs without another word. Inside was a camera lens, clean, matte black, encased in velvet. A Leica APO Summicron. Her heart stopped. She recognized it immediately. It was the one she'd been renting for months, saving up for. She ran her fingers along the engraved metal, stunned. Tucked beneath it was a note. Only 4 words written in lean, precise handwriting: "Create what you see." No overdone message. No signature. Just that. She set the lens down slowly, her chest tight. It wasn't the price that overwhelmed her, it was the fact that he'd paid attention. That he understood what it meant to her. By late afternoon, her phone rang. It was a gallery manager she'd once begged to let her show a single piece. She hadn't heard from them in over a year. "We've been reviewing some of your work," the woman said, her tone bright. "We'd like to feature a small collection in our upcoming show. You'd be the new artist segment." Tessa blinked. "How did you?" A contact of ours forwarded your portfolio. "You come highly recommended." She hung up in a daze, staring at the wall like it might explain what just happened. She hadn't even sent Finnian anything yet. She called the number he gave her that first day, his assistant's line. The woman answered with crisp politeness, but when Tessa asked if Finnian was available, she said he was in back-to-back meetings until evening. Something about a quarterly review and a press briefing. Tessa didn't leave a message. She went to the park instead. The lens was already mounted on her camera. She spent hours chasing movement sunlight through tree branches, children laughing in fountains, a man proposing under an archway. The lens was sharp, fluid, intuitive. With it, she felt like she could see everything in a way she never had before. She didn't check her phone until the sun dipped low. There were no missed calls, no messages. She didn't expect one, but part of her hoped. It wasn't until 2 nights later that he reached out again. She was walking home from the gallery, a tote full of printed proofs slung over her shoulder, when a sleek black car pulled up beside her at the curb. She paused as the back window rolled down. Finnian looked different, looser. His tie was gone, collar open. His hair was slightly tousled. "Get in," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "That your idea of subtle?" "I've had a long day. Bad, exhausting." She slid into the car beside him. "Why me?" He turned toward her. "What do you mean? You could have called anyone." You probably have a whole list of women who'd cancel dinner plans just to breathe the same air as you. I didn't want anyone else. She tried to look away, but he didn't let her. His voice was quieter now. I haven't stopped thinking about that night. Because it didn't go the way you expected, because it did, he said, and it still surprised me. The car turned down a narrow street. She recognized it the edge of the garment district, but they weren't stopping at a restaurant or a penthouse. You hungry? He asked, starving. Good. The car slowed in front of a building with faded brick and an old iron sign. The lights inside were warm, golden. A man in an apron opened the door for them, smiling like he'd been waiting. Tessa stepped inside and blinked. There were only 4 tables. No music, just the clink of dishes and the low murmur of conversation. It didn't look like a place billionaires frequented. This was my mother's favorite spot, Finnian said as they sat. When I was a teenager, she used to bring me here when things were bad at home, her brow furrowed. Bad how my father was, volatile, he didn't elaborate. This place was an escape. She told me that no matter how powerful you became, the best meals were the ones where you could actually taste the silence. The waiter brought over 2 steaming bowls of pasta and a bottle of wine that looked aged but unpretentious. Tessa took a bite and let out a breath. This is insane. I know, she studied him. You don't talk about your parents much, do you? I don't talk about anything much. Why? Because people listen for the wrong reasons. And you think I don't? I think you're the only person who didn't ask me what I do before asking how I was. She looked down at her plate. I didn't even ask if you were okay, I just shoved you into my car. And I didn't say no. They ate in silence for a while, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was grounding. The food was simple flavors that made you slow down. She could see why it meant something to him. After dinner, they walked the block to where his car was waiting. Neither of them reached for the door. Tessa leaned against the side of the car, arms crossed. So what happens now? I fly to London tomorrow. Board meetings, investor dinners, 3 days, and after that, he stepped closer. That depends on whether you'll be here when I come back. She didn't answer right away. I don't want to be a distraction, you're not. I don't want to be a project either, or a novelty, he didn't flinch. You're the most real thing I've seen in years. She exhaled. Then don't disappear. I won't. I mean it, Finnian. Don't do the thing where you get busy and forget this was something. He looked at her like he was memorizing every word. I don't forget, he said. Not people, not moments, not you. Then, without asking, he kissed her. Not tentative. Not rushed. It was the kind of kiss that didn't need clarifying. When he pulled back, she was still holding his jacket lapel. Go, she whispered. Before I make you miss your flight. I don't leave until morning. Then say goodnight before this gets harder. He stepped back slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. I'll come back, he said. You'd better. And then he was gone, the car slipping into traffic like it had never been there. But she felt it, like something had shifted, like something had started. The gallery was nearly full by the time Tessa arrived, the low hum of voices echoing through the arched ceilings. Her photographs lined one entire wall, each framed in clean black metal moments of movement frozen in time, raw and unfiltered. A boy leaping over a puddle. A woman laughing behind a bouquet of sunflowers. A street violinist with closed eyes and a bowed head. It was her first official showing. Not a corner display, not a shared wall. Hers. She hadn't heard from Finnian in 5 days. She told herself he was busy, that London came with late nights and closed doors. But the silence echoed louder with every hour that passed. She didn't tell anyone he was supposed to come tonight. She didn't want to look like the girl who'd imagined something that wasn't real. She sipped her champagne and answered questions from strangers who suddenly cared about lighting choices and shutter speed. She smiled until her cheeks hurt. Then, just as she was turning to adjust a frame that had shifted slightly, she felt it, a stillness behind her. She turned. He stood beneath the archway, a tailored navy coat over his arm, his gaze locked on her. The room, the noise, the people, they all fell away. You're late, she said. I know, you missed the start. I was across the river, I came straight from the helipad. You took a helicopter. There was traffic. She stared at him, heart thudding. You didn't call. I didn't want to promise I could make it and disappoint you. So you just vanished. I needed to be here in person, not a voice on the phone, not a message. Her breath stilled as he stepped closer. I've been in boardrooms with people who run countries, he said. And I've never been more nervous than I was walking into this room. Why? Because this matters. The way he said it quiet, certain made the champagne glass tremble slightly in her hand. She set it down. You could have sent flowers, she said. I didn't come to congratulate you. I came because I can't stop thinking about you. His voice didn't waver. I've been trying, he continued. Tried burying myself in meetings, flying halfway across the world, convincing myself this was just timing or novelty or gratitude, but it's not. Her throat tightened. It's you, Tessa, he said. I don't want to go back to waking up in penthouses that feel like hotel rooms. I don't want another date arranged by a publicist or another dinner where I talk about revenue like it's a personality trait. People were watching now, whispers rising, she didn't care. I want the woman who told me to buckle my seatbelt with paint on her sleeve, he said. I want the way you see the world. I want the quiet moments, the hard ones, the ones that don't make sense but feel like they should. She couldn't speak. He stepped closer still. I'm not asking for a maybe, he said. I'm asking for everything. She blinked, eyes burning. I don't have a trust fund, she said. I know. I take up space, I ask questions. I push back. I want that. I'm not going to be someone you keep on the side of your life, Finnian. You won't be, she stared at him, pulse thrumming. And if I say yes, I'll spend the rest of my life proving you were right to. A hand brushed hers. Then he dropped to one knee. The room gasped. He didn't pull out a ring, he didn't need to. I'm not asking you to marry me tonight, he said. But I want to build toward that. I want the messy days and the good ones. I want every version of your life, not just the polished ones. She swallowed hard. You really took a helicopter for this? I'd have walked across the river if I had to. Her lips parted. You're unbelievable. I'm yours, he said. She didn't know who moved first. But then she was in his arms and the room erupted into applause. She pressed her forehead to his, her hands gripping the sides of his face. You're not allowed to disappear again, she whispered, not even for a second. And if you ever try to buy me another lens, I'll buy the whole gallery instead. She laughed through the tears and kissed him. Later that night they slipped away from the crowd, the city glittering beyond the tall windows. He took her hand, kissed her knuckles slowly, deliberately. I want a life with you, he said. We barely started. Then let's start fast. You sure you're ready? I'm sure I was the moment you pulled up in that Corolla and told me to get in. She leaned into him, her voice low. Next time your driver calls in sick, she said, you're calling me first. You're the only one I'll call, he said, and when he kissed her again, it wasn't like the first time or the second, it was a promise. And this time she believed him. Tessa stood near the edge of the rooftop garden, warm summer air curling around her bare shoulders. The soft murmur of string instruments floated from the far end of the terrace, where a quartet played as the golden hour cast everything in a honeyed glow. Guests sipped champagne beneath trailing wisteria. Every table held a different arrangement of wildflowers, no two alike. Finnian stepped behind her and slid his hand gently into hers. You're quiet. I'm taking it in, she said, not turning yet. You planned all of this. I had help, he said. But yes, every detail. She finally turned to face him. A deep green tie brought out the stormy blue of his eyes, and his white shirt was open at the collar, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. He looked relaxed in a way he rarely allowed himself. I haven't even said yes yet, she teased, watching the faint twitch at the corner of his mouth. You will. And if I don't, I'll keep asking, he said. Every day, Tessa's eyes softened. When I was 16, I used to dream of a night like this, something beautiful, quiet, real. But I never thought I'd actually have it. You do now. She touched the edge of her dress, fingers brushing the silky fabric. This can't just be a moment, Finnian, I need the after, the messy parts. The days when it rains and nothing works and we argue about stupid things. I want all of it, she looked at him. I need to believe you. Then let me show you. He took her hand again, led her through the garden, past the tables, and into the glass hallway that overlooked the skyline. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows and gold light across the marble floor. They reached a quiet room tucked at the end. Inside was something she didn't expect: her photographs, blown up, beautifully framed, arranged in sequence, not her public gallery work. These were personal, intimate. Shots she hadn't realized he'd seen. A woman standing barefoot on a fire escape with a mug in her hand, hair wild. A child pulling a red wagon across a cracked sidewalk. A man sitting on the back of a pickup truck, eyes closed, fingers brushing his guitar strings. Tessa's throat tightened. You had these printed. I borrowed your hard drive last week, he said. You left it on my desk. You went through everything. I looked. I didn't touch anything else. She stepped forward slowly, her eyes landing on a photo she had taken of herself in the mirror, camera in hand, half her face in shadow. I took this on a really bad day, she said. I had no jobs lined up. Rent was overdue. I remember thinking, if nothing changes, at least I'll have this image to prove I existed. Finnian stood beside her. You don't need to prove anything anymore. She turned to him. Why me? I've met people who want my name, my money, my power. You're the only one who just wanted me to get where I was going, she exhaled slowly. Then ask me again. He didn't move, just held her gaze. Will you marry me, Tessa Monroe? She smiled through the tears. Yes, I will. Time didn't pause, but it felt like it did. He kissed her there in the quiet room filled with her soul, the city blinking beyond the glass behind them. Later that night, they slipped away from the rooftop celebration and drove upstate. He didn't explain, just said he had one more surprise. They reached a winding road lined with trees, the headlights casting soft shadows. When the car stopped, she saw the cottage. It was small, with ivy on the walls and warm light glowing from inside. A porch swing creaked in the breeze. The lake behind it reflected the stars. Finnian handed her a key. What is this? Our place, he said. Whenever we need quiet, whenever we need to disappear. She stepped slowly inside. The walls were lined with books and an old record player waited in the corner. A studio space faced the lake, flooded with soft light through tall windows. Her camera bag was already there. You built this? I had it restored, he said. It used to be my mother's, she left it to me. I didn't know what to do with it until now. Tessa walked to the window, her hand pressed against the glass. I don't know how to live in a world where people do things like this for me, she said quietly. Then let me teach you. They stayed the weekend, waking to birdsong and the scent of pine. They made coffee, read on the porch, wandered the lake's edge barefoot. He cooked breakfast. She took photos of his hands while he did, and when they returned to the city, nothing had changed, but everything had. 2 months later, they married in the garden behind the cottage. No press, no spectacle. Just a handful of people, wildflowers in her hair and the wind carrying their vows across the water. She didn't wear white. He didn't wear a tie. They danced barefoot beneath the trees, and when he whispered, "This is real," against her ear, she whispered back, "I know." Years passed. Her photographs went global. His company expanded, but they returned to the lake every season, sometimes for a week, sometimes just a night, they argued. They forgave. They built a life that wasn't perfect, but it was wholly theirs. On their 5th anniversary, he surprised her with a second studio, this one in the city, designed just the way she'd once described while half asleep in his arms. And when she opened the door, seeing the light-filled space with her name etched in the glass, she turned to him and said, "You remember everything?" He kissed her shoulder. "Only the important parts." They never needed a fairy tale, they just needed each other, and that they had. Forever.